ho, ho! Welcome to week 16 NFL DFS video here for Fantasy Six Pack. It is yours truly, DFS Claus, here to bring you hopefully the best plays and get you some money-making strategies here for week 16. I know I was off as far as content is concerned for last week, but I like 3.5 times my money, I think. So I had a pretty good week. Hopefully we can carry that right along here into week 16 for you. Let's just hop right into quarterbacks. And let's see, when I go and I look through my stuff here, I'm going to start at just the top as far as salary and work my way down with guys that I find notable. And so we'll start right at the top there with Josh Allen. He's $8,500 on DraftKings. He's got a matchup in Chicago against the Bears. And, I mean, it's interesting because I don't expect there to be a ton of points here. But, you know, Josh Allen is always in play. He's been a little hit and miss, more so than I like, since that UCL injury. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm feeling on him. Looks like he's going to be outside the top 5 as far as ownership for quarterbacks. So that actually excites me a little bit. If I look at his partner in crime here, Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is looking to be under 10%, probably just a little bit over 5%. So I do like that. I do like the idea, of playing those two elite players at fairly low ownership. Let's see, as far as points, first, second, third. So they're right now the 4th highest team projected total. So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I don't know that, Justin Fields is going to be able to push, Buffalo to where they have to score enough points to really make this work. And he probably wouldn't even want to run it back, would be my guess. But Josh Allen is definitely someone that I could see playing. Patrick Mahomes, $8,400 on DraftKings. This is a little more my speed. He's going to be very popular, though. Definitely going to be in the top 3 as far as ownership is concerned. And, it's pretty simple. If you play him, you stack him with Kelsey. And then if you want to stack him with McKinnon, I can get behind that. If you want to save some money, I think you could stack him with Hardman. He's going to be back this week. But outside of that, it gets real dicey. I mean, Hardman's dicey, in and of himself. Not sure I could recommend playing, Mahomes naked, because you kind of reserve that for the guys that get a lot of their points on the ground. And that's just not the kind of guy Mahomes is. Mahomes is the kind of guy who's going to throw you, 2 or 3 touchdowns and have 300 plus yards. He does some damage on the ground, but if he got you 30 yards, you'd be pretty happy with that. So that's how I'm approaching that. And then we go back there to Justin Fields. Definitely going to be less owned than Josh Allen, probably well under 5% even. And I think this is probably a better play, long term than playing Josh Allen. The ceiling's higher for Allen. The floor is probably higher for Allen, but the difference in ownership there and the saving of $1,000 really comes in handy, and you can absolutely run Fields naked. As a matter of fact, the only guy I would even consider stacking him with would be Cole Kmet. And I don't know how I feel about that. We'll get to Cole Kmet, a little bit later on, but Buffalo's giving up the least amount of points on this slate to tight end. So I feel like you go Justin Fields naked, but if you're that unconfident of who he's going to throw the ball to, then you're literally just hoping that he gets points on the ground. And I don't know, that's a tough way to go, but that's why his ownership is going to be so low. So, something to think about. Let's see, Lamar Jackson, did not practice on Wednesday, and he will not be playing in week 16. So there we go. We can move on from that one. Joe Burrow going up against the Patriots. That's going to be an interesting one. Burrow's got everyone healthy, and back on the field, so that bodes really well for him. He's got a lot of weapons, but we know that New England can play some good defense, and it makes it a little harder to define who to stack him with. Now, granted, you're looking at Chase and you're looking at T. Higgins, so it's not like it's super hard to figure out. But I don't know that I would want to double him here, because to double stack him is saying, hey, New England's really going to push back, and the Bengals are going to have to score a lot of points. and I don't see Mac Jones and that offense doing it. Um, Burrow's going to come in, reasonable ownership, 6, 7, 8%. So it's an option. Kirk Cousins, probably going to end up being the chalkiest quarterback on the slate. He's got back-to-back games where he's thrown over 400 yards, multiple touchdowns as well. Granted, that was against Detroit, and that was in a huge comeback and, epic comeback against the Colts. And let's see here. Giants against the pass. Let's see how they are against quarterbacks. Let's see what kind of exact matchup we got here. So 4th most points on this slate to quarterbacks. So I can see it. I can see why a lot of people are going to be going this direction and why they're going to want to play Kirk Cousins. For me, it's actually going to be probably a full fade. It's hard to trust Kirk Cousins. Variety of reasons. Number one, in this particular matchup, Giants like to blitz. And Kirk Cousins is horrific against the blitz. So you're going to see a lot of pressure coming from the Giants. And then with that pressure comes, man coverage. And again, Kirk Cousins, terrible against man coverage, whereas the Giants run that so often. So it's actually a pretty tough matchup here. People looking at it on paper are going to like it. I think that it's a fade for me. I don't see myself playing Kirk Cousins. Dak Prescott, interesting matchup here going against Philadelphia because it's going to be Gardner Minshew. It's not going to be Jalen Hurts. I don't know if it's official or not. Looks like he's not expected to play, but I'm pretty sure we're going to see Gardner Minshew here. I think Gardner is going to be just fine. I kind of hope that, Hurts not playing lessens the cumulative ownership in that game because, I do like, Dak Prescott hopefully having some depressed ownership. But the problem is, though, Philadelphia is really good against the pass. And, I put out a tweet last night, chronicling, how much CeeDee Lamb has struggled. So I'm off CeeDee Lamb this week. Him and Kirk Cousins, 2 popular guys, and I'm not playing. So if I play Dak, I don't know who I would stack him with. I kind of prefer the run game there, even though if Jordan Davis is in, the Eagles are good against the run. So, I don't mind Dak. You just hear myself, talking right out of that whole idea. So we'll see what happens. I don't anticipate personally playing any of him. Geno Smith is going to be interesting. Now, of course, he's going to be without Tyler Lockett, but he's on the opposite side of the field there with Patrick Mahomes. And, they like to pass the ball. And I'm not so sure that being without Lockett means they're going to stop. I think the best benefactory of that is going to be Noah Fant. I would assume that, DK gets a little more love, but I also could just see them trying to take DK out of the game and saying, you're going to have to beat me with Marquise Goodwin. You're going to have to beat me with Noah Fant. You're going to have to, throw the ball, out of the backfield to Homer or K9. So we'll see. I do definitely like Geno. I don't know how much of him I'm going to have. Honestly, I'm going to be playing quite a bit of Mahomes, so I might just shy away from Geno just so I don't have too much exposure to that one game. And then Daniel Jones here, 5,600 on DraftKings. He's going to be popular going up against a really bad pass defense. It looks like I gave you the stats wrong earlier. It's the Vikings that are giving up the 4th most points to quarterback. So I apologize there. And Daniel Jones is in a weird spot because, it's been like this all season long where he doesn't really have any great weapons to throw to. But oddly enough, he's got a handful of guys that I find to be serviceable. And I think Darius Slayton is going to be extraordinarily popular on this slate. Let me take a quick look here. Not as popular as I thought. Looks like he's going to be outside the top 5, but I think he's the guy that's going to get steamed up and get to within the top 5 in ownership. The volume isn't bad. Production isn't great, in that offense, but I think Slayton's a guy who's going to get pumped up, and a lot of that is because Daniel Jones is going to be fairly well owned. I just want to see exactly what he's been doing on the ground here. Let's see here. On the ground, yeah, Daniel Jones, it's been a little bit like Mahomes. 30-ish or so yards, but he's had a game over 100. He's had a game over 70. So he definitely got more potential on the ground than Mahomes, even though Mahomes is probably, not probably, he's the better athlete. But yeah, so I think that's where I'm looking at here. If you want to get absolutely crazy, I guess, in GPPs, if you want to go Malik Willis and just, really get off of that Gardner Minshew chalk, because, they're going to be, a similar price. Let's see, where is Minshew's price here? Why am I not finding it? Gardner Minshew's 4,800. Malik Willis is 49. So, you're going to get a great pivot there. And then you're also banking on the fact then probably that Derrick Henry does not have a massive game. Now, it's not like Malik Willis is going to throw for 300 yards, but, you're hoping that maybe he gets 100 yards on the ground, gets multiple touchdowns. Maybe he throws one in as well. So if you really want to get off script, it's kind of crazy, but I could see how Malik Willis could win you a GPP just with, leverage, and then you go about it from there. But I guess that does mean I overlook Gardner Minshew here. I do really like him. He's going to be really cheap. He's probably going to be my cash game quarterback. If he gets you 15 points, you're very happy. It allows you, to pay up in cash. Maybe you pay up for Derrick Henry and you pay up for CMC. And then you just figure it out from there. You punt at tight end, you punt at defense. There's plenty of value wide receivers out there. So playing Gardner Minshew allows you to do those kind of things in cash. So, I think he's GPP viable as well. I don't like where his ownership's going to sit. So I'm probably out, but it does allow you to play, some of the better plays on the slate, without having to worry about it too much. All right, let's hop into running backs. Let's see here. Right up at the tippy top, we got the non-Pro Bowler, Christian McCaffrey, going up against Washington. Doesn't really matter who he's going up against. Basically, it's been averaging about 30 points the last 3 weeks here. I'm getting it done in the air with touchdowns and some volume. I'm getting it done on the ground, with some yardage. He's going to be super popular. Him and the next guy on the list here, Derrick Henry, both probably going to be pushing 30% ownership. So not going to be unique at all, but they're great plays. And then speaking of it, Derrick Henry, $8,600 going against the worst run defense in the league with the Texans. It's crazy that, it's probably more likely than less that he gets 200 yards on the ground, because that's just what he does. When he plays Houston, if he gets you 2 touchdowns to go along with it, he very likely is optimal, even at that price. And, depending on who you decide to play at quarterback, you definitely can build lineups where you have CMC and Derrick Henry in that lineup. So, again, that's almost surely the way I'm going to go in cash. But in tournaments, you can go that way as well. You just need to make sure you are different with those, value plays across the rest of your lineup, because a lot of people, if they go that route, obviously have to have the same type build as you. So you do have to find a way to be unique, and, people are going to be looking at a lot of the same value. Dalvin Cook, $7,200, going up against Minnesota. I think that's interesting there, because I think most people are going to be on the passing game there, just because, they're expecting it to score some points. And the Giants are going up the 5th most points to running backs on this slate. I think, he might go a little bit under-owned. He's probably still going to be, 20-some%. So it's not like you're getting, mega leverage. But, if CMC or Derrick Henry were to fail, which, again, odds are one or both will, then, having a guy like a Dalvin Cook, if he puts up 30, does provide you with a lot of leverage, even though he is relatively high owned. Ramondre Stevenson, really no reason to expect that he's not going to play. Middle of the road matchup here, going up against Cincinnati. It's a game where we expect Cincinnati, will score some points. I think New England's defense is pretty good, so it's not going to be a shootout by any means, but most likely to get points from New England through Stevenson. And then you've got Tony Pollard and you've got Ezekiel Elliott. Pollard's up to $1,000 more on DK than Zeke is right now. Let's take a look at ownership here. It looks like Pollard's probably going to be twice as expensive, or I'm sorry, twice as owned. I kind of like Zeke here better. We know that, Zeke's more than likely going to fall in the end zone. He's got a touchdown in 7 straight. 2 of those are multiple touchdown efforts. And he's been very consistent. I mean, he's basically getting you 15, 16, 17 points. If he gets you 18, that's 3x. So, I don't think he's going to be a slate breaker by any means. But, if you wanted to save a little bit of salary at running back as opposed to, paying up for the Henrys and paying up for the McCaffreys, or if you just want to play one, I think you could do a lot worse than Zeke. Again, Philly's got a decent run defense, but, Zeke just needs to kind of fall in the end zone a couple times and get you 50 yards, and you'd be fairly happy with that. J.K. Dobbins going up against Atlanta. This is interesting because I expect this to be a disgusting game. I don't expect a whole lot of points here. But when I look at the matchup, I mean, it's a little bit better than average. Looks like they're 7th worst against the running backs so far this year, and Dobbins has been pretty good here since he's been back. It's been more efficiency than volume. He's only got 28 carries combined, but he's got 225 yards on the ground. And oddly enough, he hasn't really been a factor through the air. He's only got 1 target. It's resulted in a catch for 3 yards, and that's kind of what JK was known for coming out of that school from Ohio. And he, hasn't really done a whole lot in the air, even at all in the NFL. I mean, his rookie year, a little bit, but it was still a bunch of 1 and 2 catches. And this year it's been next to nothing. So, playing him, you're hoping for a touchdown and you're hoping for 100 yards. Don't know exactly how likely that is, but it's certainly an option. And let's see, if I continue to work my way down, who else catches my eye? Kareem Hunt's kind of interesting. It looks like Nick Chubb is no longer on the injury report, so that would have made Hunt much more interesting. Obviously, if Chubb would have been out, then no brainer. But if he would have been limited, then that would be nice. So I think I can take Hunt right out of that mix. But yeah, that's where I think I'm looking at right now for running backs. So let's pop on over to wide receivers. Kind of usually my favorite position, honestly, because I feel like at running back, you just kind of are okay with eating chalk. At least I know I am, especially in cash. At wide receiver, that's where you can get a little bit different. This is where you're stacking with your quarterback. And I'm not opposed to playing chalk wide receivers, but I feel like this is really where you have an opportunity to get more clever, get more creative, kind of find a different path. Because at running back it's very hard to do that, but receiver you can definitely do it. Justin Jefferson is going to be the chalk here. He's very expensive. He's $9,300. That is his highest price of the season, but he's had back-to-back 30+ point efforts, 30+ in 3 of the last 4 as well, and the guy's just elite. So, there's nothing wrong with playing him. I don't think I really have to talk to you too much about Justin Jefferson. Talked a little bit about Stephon Diggs earlier, $8,500 here. I think it's a decent spot here to stack up him and Allen, just because, you're gaining leverage here, just because if you're playing Diggs, you're probably off of, well, especially if you're playing Diggs and Allen, you're probably off of CMC and Henry. You're just not playing guys that are highly owned. So if they fail and your guys don't, you are way ahead of the field. Now, granted, you're not doing it by saving salary, which would be fantastic, but, doesn't always work that way. Jamar Chase going up against New England, $8,300 here. Now, my fear just simply is that New England does what they do and they take away, the best option on the opposing team. And to me, that's Jamar Chase. Now, I would argue that Jamar Chase is matchup proof, but, with that being said, I think I'd rather just not spend the money there and rather pay for CMC or Derrick Henry and just go a different route. So I think I'm off there. AJ Brown, $8,100 against Dallas. If I'm playing Minshew, I want to stack him. And you could stack Brown, you could stack Devontae. Looks like their ownership's going to be about the same. We don't know what it's going to look like with Dallas Goedert back in the mix. Whenever he was out, Brown and Smith were just getting everything. It's hard to say if they're going to ease Goddard in. It's hard to say if Goddard's going to, eat up some red zone targets or if he's not going to be in the mix at all. And then again, you throw in Minshew as opposed to Hurts. So it's hard to say what's going to happen here, but I feel like you can pretty comfortably stack him with Brown or Smith and not have to worry about it. Amon St. Brown, $7,800. He's in Carolina. I don't mind him as a one-off play. I'm definitely not playing any Jared Goff this week. Jared Goff struggles on the road this year. Now, granted, those road matchups have typically been pretty tough, and Carolina's not a tough road matchup, but just not really interested in Goff. But St. Brown is, he's been good. I mean, he's had at least 15 points every game since he's been back and healthy. You can pretty much chalk him up for 10 targets as well. Like I mentioned earlier about CeeDee Lamb, I'm just off on CeeDee Lamb this week, which probably makes me off on Dak Prescott as well. If I go back to his last 3 matchups against Philadelphia, week 6, he had 10 targets, which is fine. 5 catches for 68 yards. That's not going to get it done in his price tag. We go back to last year, week 18, 2 targets, 2 catches, 45 yards. And that was in a blowout win too. So, if he's not going to score when they get 51 points, then, I don't know. And then early on in the season, week 3, 3 targets, 3 catches, 66 yards. Again, none of that's getting it done. Rather just save the cash and go elsewhere. DK Metcalf going to be very popular. Without Lockett, like I said, most obvious run back from Mahomes stacks, most obvious stacking partner for Geno. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Brandon Ayuk is interesting. No Debo. So, that's going to get him some more action there, obviously. I don't know how much I like it just because, he is very, hit and miss, and there is so much value to have that wide receiver. But, it's not something that I hate because, the Commanders are pretty vulnerable through the air. And between him and Kittle, those are going to be the two biggest targets. So, you do what you want there. And right below him is Terry McLaurin. Now, that's a guy I love just because, his volume with Heineke has been ridiculous. I don't hate a mini correlated stack there between the two of them. Again, I'd probably rather just go somewhere else. But if you're building 20 or 150 lineups and you want to slide 1 or 2 of those in there, I don't hate it because the cumulative ownership is probably going to be, half of even what you're going to get like Jefferson at. So I don't hate it. All right, so Juju Smith-Schuster, we're getting down now into some pretty affordable pricing. $5,800. He's been coming on as of late. Double-digit targets. 9 and 10 catches. Over 70 yards each of the last 2 weeks. He's got a touchdown in there. But McCole Hardman comes back this week. He was pretty involved in the offense. Before he got hurt. So, I just don't know what to expect out of him here. You're going to expect about 10% ownership, so nothing crazy. Definitely in play. I just wouldn't get like crazy excited about it. We got DJ Moore up next, going up against the Lions, so great matchup. He's got over 18 points 2 of the last 3 weeks. Now, granted, it's not been on a lot of volume. It's been on efficiency. It's been getting in the end zone. I'll be honest with you, even as bad as the Lions pass defense has been on the year, they really haven't been all that bad in the last, 5, 6, 7 games. And assuming that, Okudah is healthy, I would expect that he is on DJ Moore. And, he shut down Justin Jefferson, and he's been doing a good job shutting guys down. Now, he did have a good game last week, but I think I'm going to have to be off on DJ Moore here just because I do see the Lions, really – wouldn't say shutting them down necessarily, but they definitely could. Adam Thielen, $5,300. I think is going to be very popular just because you're going to have people that either can't afford to get up Jefferson or just want to be different and not play Jefferson. And so Thielen's going to be way more popular than you'd like, especially for the ceiling that he has. For him to get, it's 3x, you're looking at 16 points, which isn't crazy, but that's not, he doesn't have ceiling games anymore. So you definitely need him to score a touchdown, and then you need him to get some catches and some yards to go along with it. I mean, kind of obvious, I guess, right? But, the bigger story here is he needs to get in the end zone to pay off. And, I'd rather just go a different route where, I don't have to rely on touchdowns because they're so hard, to predict. And then Darius Slayton, we talked about him earlier. Decent volume here. Again, not going to break the slate by any means. 15 points gets you 3x on him. And he can definitely do it. You're not going to get a whole lot more than that out of him, but in a game that probably is going to score some points, you would think, or at least have, the Giants chasing points, I think that's a pretty good spot for him there. Another guy I want to talk about here, down $4,800 for Drake London. Needs to get you about 15 points to be worthwhile, but his volume's been out of hand. So he leads the league at like a 40% target share over the last 3 weeks. The last 2 weeks, he's had 11 and 12 targets, 6 and 7 catches, and for at least 70 yards. If he could just get in the end zone, he most definitely could drastically pay off. And at that price tag, as inconsistent as he is, he's a strong consideration for me in cash. And normally in cash, you want a guy that's got, a really solid floor. And that's not Drake London, but his volume has been really good. And, I don't mind chasing volume. Typically that's a running back thing. But in this particular case, there's a lot more room for points for him here. Again, specifically if he gets in the end zone, which, again, we hate chasing touchdowns, but, double-digit targets each of the last 2 weeks, that has me very interested. All right, let's end it there. Let's pop on over to tight ends here real quick. As it typically is, for me at least, tight ends are Travis Kelce and everybody else. I think Travis Kelce is in an absolute smash spot. Oh, man, I wish I could have 100% Travis Kelce this week. And you know what? Damn it. Maybe I will. But I probably have 100% Kelce with my Patrick Mahomes lineups. Seahawks are giving up by far the most points to tight ends. And that's where, obviously Kelsey's going to line up, even though he's much more of a receiver. He's a tight end, and he's $8,000, so he's not cheap. If you play Mahomes and you play Kelce, sure, you could make it work to fit in, a Henry or a CMC. It gets a little difficult, but, it's doable. But more than likely, you're going to have to pass on those guys. And that's not the worst thing in the world because, it does make you unique from the field. Obviously, it doesn't make you unique from other Mahomes stacks, but it makes you unique from the field. So I am a humongous fan for a variety of reasons, with Mahomes and Kelce stacks. If we go down from there, again, it's tight end. So, you kind of can do whatever you want to. I prefer to pay down. But, anytime you can pay up for Kelce, it does make sense. Just names the guys that I'm at least interested in this week from tight end. TJ Hawkinson, 4,900. Dallas Goedert, like I said, coming back at 45. Cole Kmet, I like him as far as a stacking partner with Justin Fields. I don't think I would play him just as a one-off. Again, terrible matchup against Buffalo. Least amount of points given up to tight ends. Dalton Schultz is always interesting. A little too hit and miss for my liking. He kind of has been going back and forth between bad game, good game, bad game, good game. But he just had a bad game. So, we'll see. Again, I'm off on CD Lamb. So those, targets and those yards and, all those fantasy points have to go somewhere. So Dalton Schultz would be my lean. And it's only 4,200. So not terrible, definitely not like a punt at that position by any means, but it's also, you're not paying up. Juwan Johnson's interesting. I feel like, again, at tight end, you're really just hoping. I don't really like chasing. Really don't like chasing touchdowns at other positions, but I feel like at tight end, that's kind of what you need for it to work because they're so damn volatile. And Juwan Jennings, if he does anything, it's catch touchdowns. Um, and so if he just catches one, you're in great shape. Because it's not like he's getting a ton of volume, but at 3,800, it's a pretty solid play. I like Noah Fant as well. Again, I talked about that earlier with Lockett being out. I think Fant is going to be the main benefactor there. Daniel Bellinger is kind of interesting because now he really does get into your punt spot, but he hasn't done, much in the 3 weeks since he's been back. He's got a total of 12 targets, total of 9 catches, and, a little over 50 yards. So it's an interesting option, especially in that particular game against Minnesota, but I probably just don't go there this week. I'd rather spend $100 more for Noah Fant. Or we could go down to Jordan Akins, who's been getting some decent volume, at least 5 targets in 3 of the last 4 games. For $2,900, that's fantastic. He's got 2 touchdowns in the mix there as well. At that price, it really does just come down to if they score a touchdown, they pay off. If they don't, it's going to be hard because they just don't have the volume, And then we round it out with everyone's favorite, defense and special teams. I mean, you know how I feel about this. I like to spend under $3,000 on DraftKings. I like a defense that's, going to be 5% or less owned. And ideally, I like to be able to stack them with, my quarterback, with my running back. If I take away the running back portion, just, defenses that are under 5% and $3,000 or less. We got Atlanta against Baltimore. I think that's a fine matchup. Obviously, you're going up against a backup quarterback there. Atlanta defense isn't anything spectacular, but should be a fairly low-scoring game. Low-scoring game isn't necessarily a good thing. You get points from defense usually from the passing game, be it sacks, interceptions, pick sixes, but Atlanta's an option. We go down to the Commanders, at San Francisco. It's not pretty, but it's only $2,400. Carolina against Detroit, that may be a spot that I like to go. Jared Goff can definitely turn the ball over. He's got more interceptions than touchdowns on the road. Now, Carolina's not the caliber defense that they've been playing on the road, but, at $2,300, I can see it. And then Seattle, $2,100 against Kansas City. In that point, you're really kind of hoping for a shootout. You're just hoping to get a defensive touchdown. You're hoping to get some sacks. Not an ideal play, but, that's why it's, expected to be like 2% owned. So defense is so volatile that you just never know who's going to be good on any given week. Points are not really correlated very well to salary, definitely the least of any position. So you really can't be afraid to play any defense. And that's kind of why, most of us that at least think we know what we're doing stick around the cheaper aspect of things. Because if you remember, what was it, 2 weeks ago, everyone wanted to play, the Cowboys, very expensive defense. Everyone thought, it's surefire that, they're going to probably score a touchdown against the Texans and shut them down, get a bunch of sacks and everything. And a lot of people paid up and got nothing for it. So let that just be, the ultimate lesson for you. Pay down. Things might look rough. They might look ugly, but, when it comes to defense, it really becomes a salary saver more than anything. And you just kind of hope that you catch fire, catch lightning in a bottle, and get lucky. But if you haven't done so yet, pop on over here, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn on notifications so you catch all of the DFS Clause videos as they come out. I appreciate you tuning in this week. I wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you next time.